Greetings, how you doing? This is Kinesiology 234. This presentation is specific to health history questionnaires, PAR-Q evaluations, functional movement screens, and also just a word on subjective evaluations, because the health history questionnaire, PAR-Q, FMS, and when you start getting into like body composition and height, weight, anthropometric measurements, etc., that's very objective. But as a practitioner, you also have to have skill and aptitude in being able to subjectively evaluate your client. So questionnaires are usually it's a multi-page document when we talk about a health history questionnaire that's provided to a new member who's going to partake in an exercise program. And these documents are used to help determine contraindications to exercise. So for example, when you complete a PAR-Q or your client completes a health history questionnaire, what you're hoping for is they answer honestly and they answer in a manner that allows you to foster some creative conversation with them regarding strategies regarding their health. But also, the document itself is designed to help unearth any potential issues that might be there in terms of maybe like family history or past surgeries or past health issues that the client may have. So as a result, the document kind of serves on two fronts. And you'll oftentimes see like documents that are inclusive of internal workings, like did the person pay for their down payment, their membership. And I would advocate that the actual PAR-Q health history should be a separate document and a separate entity from anything regarding the actual contract and initiation and sign-up process for a facility. But usually the health history questionnaire and the PAR-Q are part of the onboarding process for a member. And as a trainer, you'll usually get that form. Now, I have to tell you, what will happen oftentimes is your potential client will be referred to you and they'll have the document, but they'll never complete it, and they'll walk in and say, oh, I never took care of it. And you have to hold them accountable. You have to hold them accountable to complete that documentation. And some people won't. They'll quip about being like HIPAA regs and all that stuff. But, you're really trying to provide a value add for these people and make sure that they are in the best position to benefit from an exercise program and frankly not have it put them in a hospital. That's really what you're after. I put in 3 different examples, one from the NSCA, one from ACE, and one from NASM that I just pulled offline, so you can take a look at those when you look at these health history questionnaires. And you can see the depth of the questions between the NSCA, NASM, and the ACE. The ACE is a pretty simple health history questionnaire, whereas the NSCA and the NASM ones that are provided are a little bit more in depth. And so as a result, you look at those and you look at the difference between those two. Different companies will have different standards of practice regarding what they want done. Some will be, we want the NASM guidelines or the NSCA guidelines regarding health history questionnaires, and we want that consistent across all of our facilities. For others, our PAR-Q is good enough. So when you look at these health history questionnaires, understand that it's kind of dictated and driven by the environment that you're in. Some facilities are very laissez-faire, to be quite honest. Others are more clinical. And depending on what model you get yourself into, that will dictate the document that's going to be in front of you that you'll evaluate. So with the PAR-Q, it's a little bit more straightforward. You're talking basic questions, yes or no, and if you return a yes to any of them, then you do a follow-up with a more in-depth questionnaire. And the 7 questions, I just cut and pasted them right over to the right here for your benefit. And these are pretty straightforward, right? Do you have a heart condition where you shouldn't have any physical activity unless it's recommended by a doctor? Do you feel pain in your chest? In the past month, have you had chest pain? I mean, these are pretty straightforward questions where you're trying to really determine if a person is right on the edge of some type of medical issue. And with your people, when they come in, they're brought into the facility with the intention to make change. And for some of the people that you'll come across, the change itself will have less to do with a wedding dress But the fact that they go, oh my God, I feel awful. Oh my God, I can't get up and down the stairs without breathing heavy. And so they're in a very deconditioned state. And this questionnaire allows you to present to them if they should maybe seek medical guidance from their doctor regarding starting an exercise program. Because if they are that deconditioned, you might have somebody who's very hypertensive who comes in, and perhaps they shouldn't engage in heavy weightlifting exercise because it'll increase their blood pressure so much and cause issues. So when you look at these documents, they help you parse out, and again, foster conversation, but they help you parse out different issues that might be present with your clients. The FMS, uh, the FMS is very much like a lab rat type thing, but you'll see this very much in the clinical settings. We have this also in our own studio setting at Harper. And the FMS is very much intended to be an objective movement screen. But because it's evaluated by the trainer, it does have a little bit of subjectivity to it. Now, they try to have it where it's standardized, where the person receives a point value based on the exercise completed. So if they're able to do an overhead squat in a flat back position with the tibia and the thoracic part of the back all in parallel with one another with the arms overhead, and are able to do so without any pain, they get 3 points. If they have any kind of pain at all, it's 0 points. Now, in between the 1 or the 2, that's where it becomes subjective. And now the trainer can evaluate, well, the back is not flat enough, or they're not on their heels enough, or maybe perhaps they're too far out on their toes, or they're wobbled a little bit. And that's where it becomes subjective. So the FMS has its place. It has its place in trying to evaluate clients and also athletes and patients in a standardized format, but I will often guide people that the FMS is fallible. And part of the issue you have with the FMS too is you have a client who comes in and they're already terrified of the facility and they're worried about working out and looking like a fool. And then you have them do these lab rat type of exercises on a piece of wood on the floor with a stick over their head. And it now becomes a case where there is a little bit of, if you will, test anxiety because of this. And as a result, you almost are putting your client in this kind of negative environment because you know they're not going to get a perfect score. You know you're going to be critical of them. And for some people, that's just a bit too much. And so I would urge you to utilize the FMS and other objective measures in a manner that is supportive of a training environment, but doesn't provide a lab rat kind of feel. I think you'll find that your clients will be turned off by that lab rat feel. If we go ahead and look at like subjective versus objective, objective evaluations have their place, there's no doubt. And you're trying to maybe evaluate a large group like an entire football team. You have to have objective measures, sit and reach tests, bench press, squat, power cleaner measures of strength and power, 40-yard dashes for speed. So these objective measures have their place in the right place. And they have to be utilized correctly. For some individuals, one-on-one working with a client, just being able to have them stand on one foot is a way to evaluate imbalances between right side and left side. Or having them hold themselves up just in a plank position for 30 seconds is a way to evaluate their upper body strength. So you have to really kind of look at this and go, okay, when am I going to use subjective versus objective evaluations? And many times it's dictated, like I said, by the population or the size of the population group that's going to be tested. Because no doubt about it, if you want to have standardized testing and you want to be able to evaluate a large population of data points and be able to do so across multiple years, like your football team, you have to go objective. You have to go completely objective. You're not really into evaluating that person subjectively. You need that continuity and consistency across all testing. And that then allows you to calculate out and come up with standardized norms where you can then compare your current athletes with previous athletes. You can come up with what is the actual average for all of your athletes and what's your mean, median, mode. Then presents a clearer picture of what type of athletes you're drawing into the program And then from there, you can base your programming off of that. Much bigger picture, totally different course. I digress. So when we look at subjective evaluations, you have to look at the human body and go right side, left side, upside, downside, front side, back side, whether it's posterior, excuse me, anterior, posterior, inferior, superior, it doesn't matter. You're going to have imbalances, and those imbalances come from and are found in strength, flexibility, coordination, and those are all things that are measured, and they can be made as objective as possible. You can time how long somebody stands on one foot and how long they can stand on the other foot, thereby making it more objective measured, but it still has a level of subjectivity to it because you're evaluating their ability to stand on one foot or another. Oftentimes when I take a client for the first time, we have our conversation on the table, we get down on the floor, and I just let them move. I mean, we're just working out. I have them go through some basic exercises, some real simple movement patterns, and doing so allows me to evaluate that person in a natural environment. It allows me to see how they move just naturally without any kind of bias or influence or guidance or coaching from me. And then the other thing is if you place a little bit of load on the body, you then can see how the body responds. If you hand them a medicine ball, that increases the loading parameters of how much weight they're actually holding in their hands, and that ends up holding and changing the loading parameters of the exercise itself. Standing on one foot different than standing on 2 feet. 1 foot forward, 1 foot back is different than feet by side by side. So to that end, when you start working with your people, you're taking them through a workout, but as a professional, you're evaluating them as a movement professional. And in essence, what you're doing is you're evaluating them more accurately because it's a more natural movement pattern and a more natural movement environment than if you have them do like a more objective FMS or other tests like that. And beyond that, you look at this, and many times people just have test anxiety. You throw at them, you want them to do a test, if you will, and they start to freak out a little bit. And that's not what you want. You want to see your client in their natural environment. So really, which one is better? I would state that best practices would utilize a combination of questionnaires, both health history and or PAR-Q, to really be able to evaluate if there are any contraindications. And then you have to have some objective evaluations. You got to know their body composition, you got to know their weight, their resting heart rate, their blood pressure. These are all things that can be red flags towards working out, whether it's a high BMI or maybe they're just in terms of their resting heart rate being too high, or they have issues with blood pressure or hyperlipidemia, etc. Those are all very objective measures that you can use to help determine and process your clients into the right categories of low risk to high risk. And then you get into more subjective measures. I prefer these. I prefer an evaluation of movement in its natural form. I like to see how the imbalances kind of manifest themselves. And at your ages, you won't see some. You'll see a lot, but you'll see some. But you'll have individuals where they will literally have imbalances right side, left side because they sit at a desk all day and they're working a mouse, or they sit in their car and they're talking on the phone and they're on their right butt cheek the whole time while they're driving around. And you'll see the imbalances between the flexibility in the right side and the left side and the legs. You'll see imbalances in terms of trap overdevelopment on one side versus the other because they're holding their phone to their ear all day long. And those are the subtle things that you have to help reprogram people with. But those measures come from a subjective evaluation, and you try to then take that subjective evaluation and be able to measure it in a manner where you can then provide demonstrative results to your clients. Oftentimes it's just making them aware of a situation, and from there they can take it and they're fine. Other times you have to actually do some evaluation. All right, guys. So with that, I'm going to break off from here. As you go through your practice, you'll definitely have more opportunity to get your hands on people and be able to work with people and visually look at those imbalances, and just realize that being able to provide a good exercise program for your client includes both subjective and objective measures. All right, guys, signing off. Thanks.